a banger best of 5. And I think most signs are pointing to yes. We're going to jump into the draft here to start this one off. And already, things are going pretty similarly to what we were expecting, except for maybe the Nidalee first ban to come through here from T1 to deny that for Canyon.
No surprises, T1 taking away the lessons here, and the real question is what happens to Yone. T1 is, I think, expecting Gen G to ban it here. The smaller was their #1 answer that we saw them pull out. And generally, outside of that, under no circumstances have teams be allowed to get that Yone.
And the Ashe is the other thing that's such an incredibly high priority. With that Kalista ban, it is important, but I think a trade of Yone and Ashe is going to be how we start this best of 5. And Zeus is going to say, well, I might play it, but it's probably my buddy in the mid lane.
That's the beauty of this pick for T1. It is a flex between top and mid. We'll see what T1 do with it later on as the Skarner looking to be the priority for Canyon. We'll see if they look to pair that alongside the Ashe, which you already mentioned, Atlas. The Rumble is something else to take into consideration. Yone plus Rumble is such a terrifying combo, and there are so many junglers that can help facilitate it as well. Sejuani is what potentially comes to mind to really enable that mid lane matchup as the Skarner locked in for Canyon.
And Canyon, obviously, we don't love to see him on carries, but Skarner, definitely the strongest jungler currently on the patch, with the exception of that Nidalee that was banned away early on. Now, Gen G knew 100% that this Yone was going to get picked up. We've seen teams do this, particularly in best of 5 in the first game, give it up. What is their answer going to be? I was actually expecting the Ashe to get picked up here early on, because it has been such an insane cryo pick. It doesn't look like that's going to be the case, so T1 getting Yone and Ashe right here on both sides.
Because T1 had Sejuani Rumble just straight up and available for them. That top side has been so incredibly strong, and it fits their playstyle so incredibly well. But what this does is it hides where that Yone is going. It opens up the board and gives this bottom lane a whole lot of power.
Is it the Blitzcrank to come out here? Because if they don't pick it here, I do think it's going to get taken away. Is Chovy going to get his hands on the side?
They're going for a bruiser top side on the side of Gen G, looking to get down and dirty and look to try and scrap against T1. We saw a similar composition from T1 against Top Esports in their first game, where they were able to find great success, the key difference being a Renekton coming through from the side of Keen. Now we turn our attention to that jungle role. Gen G, what are they going to ban away? The Sejuani, we already talked extensively about it as an option. That's going to be the first one removed. Do they want to consider AP threats? The Blitzcrank also discussing that. Lahan's very well known for his Blitzcrank. They're not going to allow him to have that one. Now you kind of move into uncharted territory. Do you also consider Rakan something worth taking away?
Yeah, I think Rakan's a really important one. Do they just ban the Rumble because it's still very, very strong, opens the doors for a lot more 80 heavy compositions as well? Certainly a lot of things on Gen G's mind is what they could be taking away here.
The benefit here for Gen G is that they will know where this Yone is going before they lock in their final pick. So we'll see, gives them a little bit more leeway. I imagine Hayes is going to be picking up an 80 carry here on R4. As the Rumble does get taken away, Gen G also still saying we don't know where this Yone is going. We haven't seen it for Zeus in the top lane in a while, but given his history, wouldn't be no surprise. The Ezreal going to get taken away. Extremely self-sufficient pick. That is very hard to punish, and I think the range, so you don't have to interact too much with that Ashe lane, quite big as well. What is Pace going to lock in here to go with this bruiser style? Because it's really hard to find something that can play into the Ashe Renata, and it might be a lane swap on the cards.
Well, I was going to say my instinct is something along the lines of Kai'Sa, but Pace no stranger to the Ziggs. Looks like that's going to be the direction, the safe wave clear. And I mean, you look at this top side from Gen G, wave clear is definitely something that they're lacking. But I feel like Ziggs can be very self-sufficient, especially if Lahans wants to play and engage support. And I think that it complements the composition nicely. T1 now considering what they're going to put in the jungle.
A lot of different
A lot of potential options being clicked through by Gumayusi, teasing the crowd a little bit, but in his owner, we're at Worlds, and his buy is going to be the option.
Going to have to be that over. Gragas locking as well. Also kind of keeps things up in the air as far as where these two champions are going. Of course, Zeus is an incredible Gragas player, just in general, so it's not likely to go to fake. He's played it a few times.
Yeah, there was that random 3 weeks where everyone in the LCK was pranked and thinking Gragas mid was good.
Because Faker was just winning on it.
It wasn't. It was all a psych out. This used to be a really good matchup for specifically tank Gragas. With Grass, back when his sustain was a lot better, you could just completely stonewall the Renekton. He never really was able to get shoved. I do imagine, though, looking at the damage profile for T1, this is going to be the full AP variety, maybe a little bit more carry or shutdown potential early on here for GENG, but they are really heavy on the AP, and that's something that I do think we have seen be a problem for them before.
I mean, that's certainly true. The advantage is that Yone is a champion that very rarely builds things like the Merc Treads. He's very locked in his typical itemization build, along with the Gragas as well, who you kind of expect to go more towards an AP direction. I feel like that they should be fine. I think the biggest thing for GENG is being able to play through that first item spike. When you have this strong, skirmish-heavy topside in Renekton, Skarner, Sylas, you're going to be looking to fight around Herald, fight for those early dragons. You want to draw T1 into those early skirmishes before they have that opportunity to scale. And I think that it's going to be crucial for GENG to kind of force T1 into their game.
Now that we also know for a fact that this Yone is going to Faker. Faker, not one of our top tier Yones, but Senka, BDD, Chovy, all right ahead of him. So this is a big test for him as well. Being able to perform on this pick would really throw a wrench into, I think, the drafting plans for GENG. You would take a big gamble here with this game 1 draft.
And Faker has found success and had some iffy moments on that Yone just in general. We saw Xiaohu not really pass that test yesterday. We'll see whether Faker, our other veteran mid laner, as far as our semi-finals matchups are concerned, is going to be able to handle it. I don't think the GOAT's going to struggle too much. I think it's about how both of these drafts are going to function when we actually get into some of these brawls. But ladies and gentlemen, it is almost the moment that you've been waiting for. Game number 1 in our second semi-final of Worlds 2024 to decide who is going to be meeting BLG in the final. Oh man, already just a little bit of a defensive start. Not going to have those insane level 1s like we did in Game 2 yesterday.
The atmosphere is absolutely electric, and I think back to that spring final, the epic 5-game series that we had.
Where did those 5 games come? I'm still actually confused about where they came from. It shouldn't have happened that way.
I don't think we ever figured it out.
It's a shame that we were robbed in summer of them meeting in the playoffs, and I'm hopeful, well, we've got them here at Worlds. We get to see this opportunity.
Better late than never, eh, Betty?
T1 now setting up for an invade, looking to potentially set up for a swamp.
All right, so I was saying that there might not be a swamp, but there is. It is immediately spotted. Canyon's just going to move over to his blue side quadrant, so should be okay. Keen also going to be rotating immediately, getting the idea that there is going to be a potential lane swap in the air. Does make a fair bit of sense, but leaving a Ziggs in a bottom lane by himself is a recipe for plates.
Well, that's the big thing. Ziggs is a champion that even in top lane, because of his passive, you actually do a decent amount even for all the resistances. And if you are in a bot lane, it's going to be even more pronounced. T1 though, looking at the setups here, Ziggs actually did go for grasp, same for the mid laners, but shouldn't come as a surprise there. There's been a lot of grasp mids throughout the tournament, even seeing it on ranged champions like Smolus, and it looks like GENG is going to go for the variety where you do have Lahens just laning together with Chovy or Canyon, starting on the bot side, and looks like just the usual jungle split. Neither jungler able to steal away a camp.
Yep, just some vertical jungling to start things off here as Keen's just doing his best to zone Zeus away from minions. Of course, Gragas in a lane swap is pretty good at it. Teleport from Keen to get him towards that top side of the map. 3 versus 1 could be a little bit dangerous. Having hit level 2, I think he should be alright.
It's actually really nice timing. As he arrives, the minion dies and he immediately dinks too. So he got enough experience in bot to not be at quite a high risk of a dive. But even with that early attention being faded towards the mid lane, we do see Baker still doing fine. Bot side might be a dive setup here. Zeus is still fairly full health.
All right, let's see whether they can actually make this one work. You can see the barrel has been charged. Doesn't do a whole lot of damage at this point. Level 2 for Zeus does have that body slam. Going to use it immediately onto Canyon. Already down to 50% as Lahens is trying to take that turret for as long as possible. One more's going to do it, but Pays almost just straight up dead. And Canyon, 2 turret shots, has to flash. And Zeus says, not today, boys. Lahens looking for another option. He flashes his Zenith Blade. Lahens able to walk out of that one, but he's still going to have to flash as Faker comes down to make sure his top laner stays alive.
A colossal blunder on the execution of the dive. Lahens can't connect the E. The tower aggro is mismanaged, and GENG are forced to retreat on their first play of the series.
And GENG, I think, should count themselves lucky. That could have gone way worse.
Oh, yeah.
The Canyon unintendedly getting the aggro there was the big thing. I think it might have been red buff. He clearly wasn't expecting it. They were looking for the redive. And that moment, bot time for Faker to TP towards the bottom lane. Only good thing for GENG is that did give Chovy a little bit of time while he still has a teleport available. But T1 gonna be feeling great about that, trading just that flash on Zeus and a TP for multiple summoners from GENG.
There were so many instances there where it was very awkward for Zeus because he was one minion off leveling up, but the cannon minion had aggro. Hang on a minute, a play.
Yeah, Lehan's Hex flashing in. Not going to find that Zenith Blade either. Good handshake from Carrier, and Keen taking so much damage. Lehan's got to hit those if GENG is going to find some tempo back in this game.
Wow, Gumayushi's Ash so prevalent and even causes the screen to freeze.
Yeah.
Lehan's 3 for 3 on misses when it comes to the Zenith Blade now. He needs to be able to connect those if he wants to set up plays for his team, but I question a couple nerves. Feels like coming through here from the side of GENG early on.
Lance, known as a joker, but has had some moments. Him and Pace, I think, have throughout the course of this roster often been the most criticized. Has had incredible performances. Think back to that first series against Home Alive in summer playoffs, but then also often cited as the reason why they struggled so much in the actual finals. I do want to note the fact that GENG has triple teleport bailed them out a little bit because they were able to still catch that top wave, even with Keen being pulling out of the lane. Chovy could TP top, and Keen has now made his way to the mid lane.
Oh, that's very cute. Canyon being able to dodge the Hawk shot there as Chovy rotating back down, spotted on this control ward as Carrier taking some chain lash damage. Chovy should be able to get out of here just fine, no worries. Be able to dodge some moves. And Faker, with his Unbound Soul, just going to be able to try and push this wave in. Of course, the luxury of being able to teleport to the top lane is purely because Faker had to use his to get down towards the bottom side, but good handshake going to come in here. Could this be first blood against Chovy? That would be such devastating news for GENG. T1 already with a lot of control, 600 gold in the lead, and Faker is really having a good time in this lane despite having to vacate early.
I mean, this matchup is quite favored for the Yone early on just because of how restrained Silas is as a champion around cooldowns. He just doesn't have them in the early game to effectively trade against a champion like Yone who could just keep spamming that Q. The CS advantage, you rightly said, though, coming from the fact that OD TP came through. Chovy, he's going to be forced back to base very soon. He doesn't want to miss this wave. They're level 6. Faker threatening the potential ult there to try and zone Chovy away from that farm, but he will be able to get the can.
And with,
level 6 gained as
well. And with Keen being pulled around the map, we see that he's actually, even with the fact that he was able to catch a middle wave, he has had to really pay. Whereas Zeus, because he absorbed that early dive, has just been able to catch multiple waves. And I think T1 as a team always look their best when they get to play this aggressive, when the lanes are pushing and they are the ones dictating. As we see the Grubs now being started up as well, would be a really big boom, particularly for Faker that wants to use that pressure in a side lane. Going to be a Drake for Grubs trade. I do think an early Drake for GENG is great because obviously looking at the composition, the Renekton is going to lose a lot of value as the game goes on, but Silas and Ziggs most certainly will not.
Yep. And Cask very close to being able to steal that one away. I do like an opportunistic barrel being thrown in as now potential dive towards the top side of the map. Lehan's with that Eclipse is trying to tank things up, doesn't really do a whole lot of work. That is another miss on the Zenith Blade, but also, like you say, the minions are all going to die, so they should be okay at least for another crash.
Potential cross matches, both mid laners make their way up towards top. Nice follow there from Chovy, losing a little bit in terms of experience, but ready for the potential play happening on the top side of the map. Reset now coming through for Faker, securing his first 2 items of the game, and we're in a very timid early game. Crucially though, we talked about those first item spikes for GENG. Their biggest strength in the early game is the fact that they have Silas, Skarner, Renekton on the top side that I think want to try and leverage this skirmishing power in the early game to try and force these objectives. And as you rightly said, Dragons are going to be a great way to try and force that. Get yourself the second, and then you'll be ready to force a fight around the third, maybe even look to contest the next row.
Yeah, and I think that I kind of want to draw out a little bit and have a conversation about what these compositions are trying to do, as another Hawkshot is going to spot Canyon here this time around. Because I'm looking at GENG and I'm thinking, there is a lot of magic damage here, but also it's solo AD Renekton. So if you're not building armor, then maybe the Crocodile just eats you, which could become a problem if Keen gets accelerated. And I think that is what's so incredibly important about what you say, playing through that topside, getting those skirmishes. Because right now, I mean, we haven't had a first blood just yet. And I think that GENG probably hoping that some of that starts a little bit sooner rather than later in their favor.
GENG have often taken this role in games against T1. It's also something that's important to note. And it's not until we really start to see turrets falling or more impactful objectives go over, right? We're talking about Soul Point, we're talking about 6 Grubs, possible Herald, and that 6 Grubs I think is attainable for T1. alone is not going to be enough. There's a possible trap being set up here. Owner has that ultimate available, but instead, even if you don't actually get anything out of the play, like you're crashing this wave, you're getting the plates, and you're still putting GENG further behind.
The key difference I think we're seeing in terms of impact in this early game is Carrier. Carrier is really making his presence felt in the mid lane, and remember, Chovy had a CS advantage because of Faker's TP towards the lost side of the map. So Carrier has spent like at least 2 to maybe even 3 minutes of this game just hovering around mid, making it awkward for Chovy to base at the right time, keeping him to stay for that extra minion wave, helping Faker chip away at his HP. And you look at that CS, look at that gold slowly shifting back in Faker's way. You can see 3 plates secured in the mid lane. Meanwhile, Lahens has just been shadowing his AD carry, shadowing Pays, just making sure that yes, he can get that experience, but he's even behind Carrier when it comes to XP. So with the Grub spawning in a minute's time, desperately he needs to get that level 6 to have that ultimate available. And I wonder if GENG's actually eager to try and force a fight as the Grub's now spawning soon.
And it's the opportunity cost for the 2 plays that they tried to go for. The dive was a failure, and then the topside play we tried to set up for Keen, trying to punish this pushing power of the Ashe and Renata, also not really working out. And that not only set Lahens behind, but also started Keen being in a bit of a tough position when it comes to catching these waves. And I do agree with GENG, if they are denied a good fight, things are going to be very tough. GENG has, again, I think been in this position before, but I do really want to highlight, we say that often, but if you look at their gold stats in the LCK, they weren't getting a lot of kills, but the amount of gold they generated early was actually insane. Like they were sitting on, I think it was on average like a 1.5k gold lead, and obviously there was a meta that was textbook perfection for them, but it isn't like they were getting into fights without anything to grasp onto. In this game, feels like that might be the case as the Grubs are going to get started up. You see GENG is looking to contest. Level 6 has been hit on Lahens.
Yeah.
Is that enough? 4 Grubs are definitely going to go the way of T1 here.
Yeah, it's at least 4, but I think it's
the vision
almost guaranteed to be 6. So 5 are going to be going down here at least. Here for T1, no vision up and available at all as Pays can throw a Mega Inferno Bomb if he would like to, but looks like T1 are just going to cut their losses. 5 Grubs is pretty good. Canyon going to be able to grab this 6th, potentially. Owner a little bit far away as now could just be a team fight in. Pays doesn't actually get over the wall with that satchel. Could be an important start to this fight as Chovy's teleported in. That's going to be the Grub going down, but can they win the fight? Impale comes in, kept into the sweet spot with the barrel! Is so good. Still, it's going to be Chovy picking up first blood against Owner, and T1 just not enough damage.
T1, they could have just taken the 5 Grubs and left it at that, especially with the teleport coming in from Chovy, but instead they look for the 5v5 and GENG punch back.
Yeah, I'm surprised that T1 chose to take that, because the thing we've been talking about, right? Renekton in this early game is just, he's just so strong. Ultimate alone is enough to be so durable, a lot of damage, and you can see how the engage was a little disconnected here from T1. It's going to be Owner diving onto the back line, attempting to steal the Grub. Chovy on the side, look at Pays' positioning. Perfectly safe, nice angle. The Ashe arrow gets stolen. Gumayushi really can't do much. While the barrel looks good, the front line dissipates, and T1 is immediately forced to disengage.
Yeah, it was a Dominist Renekton, and he was kind of okay with just slicing and dicing his way around. So even though it looked amazing, didn't quite work out there. So T1, they lose first blood, but they still have a lot of tempo around this map. Unless Chovy has something to say about it, after he does crash this wave towards the top side. 5 Grubs certainly going to be valuable as the game goes on, though, and T1 are looking to also even out the Dragon count.
And the kill going to Chovy is a big deal. This Silas, we've seen how hard this champion can snowball when he does get a lead. He's able to very consistently force plays with his catch potential. And it's also something that the Chovy that we saw domestically, I think we've only seen in one game this Worlds, and it was that Game 5 Smolder game. Because his laning stats haven't really been comparable to what we have seen domestically. As a trade for turrets.
Well, it's going to be 5 Grubs, so T1 do have a fair bit, but GENG, I think they're going to be able to cut this one down. Gumayushi also in trouble there as the Solar Flare does get cleansed. Gumayushi going to be able to make his way out. I believe that was GENG taking it first.
Yeah.
And so despite the Grubs, they're still able to get there with the slight lead they had as far as the turret health. So a bit of extra gold going over to GENG, and that's going to very close to even things out here between the 2 squads.
I mean, we couldn't really ask for more, could we? Dead even game, 13 minutes
Maybe a few more kills, still just as even.
They're coming. Remember, it's game 1 of the best of 5. We're here for the entree, you know? We're just starting off.
I'm sorry, just a little bit of patience.
Atlas is not a patient man.
I know.
I just want to.
I agree with you,
the
buddy.
main course is on its way. I think what was smart there from GENG is, I mean, they had to reset after the grubs. The problem is the Dragon was spawning relatively soon, so T1 already back out onto the map in a position to secure that. GENG leveraged the fact that they had that time advantage to secure that first tower. So ultimately an even trade. The only problem for GENG is T1 can kind of sack the next Dragon if they want to without much of a problem, and they can continue to scale up. Blade of the Ruin King is very close to being completed for Faker, and that is such a massive item spike for T1 that they're definitely going to be waiting to try and secure.
Now Zeus pushing another wave towards this top lane and does have quite a few friends around. Looks like GENG did have a bit of information as to who was coming. So Canyon going to be rotating up. Pays also there, Mega in front of him in hand. The siege could be a little bit dangerous. Good handshake for the disengage as Canyon looking for an opportunity. Might be able to get in there, throwing some rocks around as you can see. Not going to go for any stuns or anything like that just yet. T1 are just going to be allowed to back away.
Crucially, look at Faker going back to base. He should have enough money for Blade of the Ruin King. This means that T1 are saying, we don't want to fight yet. It's not worth it. They're not going to overstay their welcome. The TP
Kraken as well.
The question is this TP going to be up in time to contest? The pings are coming down from T1. They have the Ash Arrow available to try and stall. T1 are saying they do want to fight this.
Looks like they're going for a great vision here with this ward, as you can see. So Ona completely on vision right now as Chovy with the Fate Sealed now stolen away or hijacked here as that's a solo player. It's going to connect. Great Impale as well, and I think Gary was there for a second, but now he is just gone. So the Herald goes to GENG. They'll take a kill as well, and now Chovy looking for more as Faker just going to pop back to his Soul's S. Going to body slam his way out of GENG. They really are taking these skirmishes.
GENG's target selection in these skirmishes has been so clean. Every single time one member is getting blown up in a barrage of CC as Lahens is driving. Always scary, but this time it works out for the mid lane turret. Gonna get taken low. T1 is able to defend.
Yeah, ever since Lahens got his license earlier in this tournament, he has definitely been driving a whole lot better than he was throughout the rest of this year. We've seen the K-Fan yellow, exactly. Very proud of him.
What we saw there as well for GENG, and it's again, I think T1, this one a little bit more understandable, but this, when GENG have the setup, this comp is so hard to engage on. There's so much disengage, and the Skarner in particular, I think, has really been a big problem for many teams this Worlds. And even with Pays, I think his flash was forced in one of the earlier plays we saw. Didn't actually happen on screen. I think maybe when they were looking for the catch on Guma, but he was positioning so safely. There was no way to get on top of the Ziggs.
Now it's just Canyon and Chovy up here towards the top side of the map. 4 members of T1 in the area looking to try and push down this turret. They really want to take their second to even out the map state as far as these structures, and a teleport to come in from Pays just to make sure that they don't lose it.
See, GENG are playing with their advantage very strategically because T1, like, the problem with the Herald was the timing. TP wasn't quite up for Faker. He needed to get that base off, yet they still wanted to try and contest rather than go for a cross map because the bot tower had already fallen. So rather than play for something like mid, they got over ambitious and they weren't able to make it work. Then what they did was they kept the pressure up in mid. So GENG could secure that mid tower. They kept Pays there. He had the TP available. He then goes back to base and then TP's top. So while this Renekton is free hitting onto the bot tower, uncontested to secure that tower, they had the Ziggs TP top to then catch the wave and prevent the siege. So T1 is just losing on the map, while GENG is continuing to gain advantages.
Yeah, and I know a lot of people have trouble liking Ziggs compositions, and I understand it's not exactly the most interactive when it comes to early game skirmishes and things like that, but what it does to a team that is very good at playing around tempo and macro that they are already good at is it's just basically a cheat code.
Well, it's as you were saying, Veddy, because even if you do try to play for mid turret, they're like, Pays can just ult the wave.
Right, yeah.
And GENG at so many of these Ziggs compositions, and it plays really well into their style, which is always trying to outtrade you. And now, what was, 1.5k gold deficit 5 minutes ago, T1's going to get this topside turret, so they're going to equalize it a little bit, but is still 1.5k gold for GENG and a second dragon on the way as well.
And look at the map setup as well. Like, GENG conceding that top side to get full vision coverage around this bot side of the map, pushing Zeus deep towards his tier 2 tower, making this very difficult for T1 to contest.
There it is.
And the Ziggs ultimate to slow down the siege. It's
Chovy comes on over, he's going to be able to clear it out as well.
It's annoying.
Yeah,
It's so annoying because
stupid Yordle.
You're trying to cross map the best that you can, and it constantly gets interrupted.
Well, Kenny looking for an opportunity here, but Zeus just going to be able to take the red buff just fine. So there is a win for T1, but they're going to have to do something to try and grab some control back in this game, because earlier on, T1 were, in the laning phase, able to get a lot of decent advantages. Yes, it wasn't translating into kills, but they were able to get some extra money. Of course, Gumayushi was very far ahead, still has, I guess, a couple of minions in the lead, but he was 20 CS up earlier on. That has been evened out. And yeah, this game state is all going to come down to, I think, just where team fights will finally erupt when these teams stop just trading objectives everywhere, as Arrow is looking to connect handshake straight into it here. And I don't think this Leona is going to last very long. That is going to be T1's first kill. They're holding on to it as best they can. Faker delivered that one. Gumayushi says, you can have it, mate. Let's allow you to scale into this mid game.
I think that's crucial as well, because Chovy has that slight advantage over Faker in terms of itemization. So funneling a bit of gold over towards Faker makes him stronger in the side lane, gets him closer to that stride breaker completion. Baron spawning him at 45. I don't think that's going to be a major point of contention this early on, but it adds that extra sense of pressure. We know T1's Barons are famous for both positive and negative reasons.
There's been a fluctuation throughout the years, yeah.
But I think at this World Championship, their Barons have been very good overall, and I think it's something that GENG will have to keep track of, especially after their experience against FlyQuest.
Well, Canyon, he's dashing on over. Faker, able to dash back whenever he would like to, but straight into the Impale! Another Solar Blade's going to lock down Faker, and he is likely to die. The bailout not going to work in Chovy. Yeah, he stopwatches, but now he's looking for even more. Zay's not going to get stunned up here, as Keen didn't have that off cooldown just yet, and Chovy is still smelling blood in the air. Carrier able to walk his way up, but it's another skirmish win for GENG.
What is GENG going to do with this? Faker does have TP available. It is very early, and I do agree. I don't think they can actually do this. Their damage to Baron, not nearly to what T1 would have, but it's a win when it comes to the immediate play. That's still TP invested though, and much like the kill lands, it's nice, but if they get like 2 more kills, you can probably look towards more. Instead, it's going to be TP, 4 kill, Bull going over to Canyon, who finally, I was going to mention, gets his first Hearthstone stacks. 20 minutes into the game.
I'd love to see it.
I will say that I feel that GENG started off this game nervous. I felt like that there were some, like the sense of pressure, the atmosphere, the arena. While it is excited for the matchup in and of itself, there's definitely more T1 fans here than GENG, and we saw some of that in the execution. But now the game has slowed down a little bit, they were able to kind of play out the map. You can see the difference in confidence level, and the TP execution was the typical GENG that we're used to seeing. Really nice collapse from them. They did lose the mid tower, but ultimately GENG playing with a lot of control and confidence on the map. Their side lane setups are nice, their vision control is good, and now again around the Baron they're suffocating it. The good news for T1 is that, as you already said, Chronica, they don't have a fast Baron. So T1, even if this Baron does start, will have plenty of time to react, even if there's not that much vision, thanks to the Ashy as well.
I think it's actually so interesting talking about lopsided crowds in this matchup especially, because GENG are exceptionally used to it, and not just GENG. You look at all of these players just in general. Keen, has he ever had a matchup where he's favored over the last 7 years? I don't quite remember when. He won his first LCK title only very, very recently. Chovy are going to be fighting against Faker here, but I don't think there's going to be any big result, although good trade there for Faker. Chovy and Lehans got smashed by T1 in their very first final that they made it to. So they're used to it over quite a few years, and Canyon was the first one to figure out how to actually do it, you know, and then became a world champion. So getting over that hurdle has been very important for all of these players.
T1 always has the home crowd advantage. It feels like one of the things that they are going to really struggle with, though, particularly with Zeus, I think kind of going, you know, partially AP, partially tank, but even he is not going to be that beefy. If you lose control of the map with this composition, you do have the ability to contest for vision just because you have the Ash, but face checking is actually really hard, and many of the plays that we've seen thus far have just been GENG finding whoever is closest and blowing them up with the CC, as this rivalry goes a while back.
It certainly does.
It's the dawn of League of Legends as we know it.
Because you got to remember that GENG, even acquiring all of the accomplishments of the former Samsung roster, right? Like, this goes way, 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 way back.
Yeah, and
back
there
when
were
there were sister teams.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. There were multiple SKTs in the league, multiple Samsung Galaxies in the league as well. Although not necessarily Samsung Galaxy, because it was blue-white back then as well. But I think we understand the reference. I just wanted to make sure I understood the semantics in case someone gets mad.
And ultimately what we're building up to, and the reason why we're focusing on all these things is because that main course dish is arriving soon. The fourth dragon of the game is going to be starting off. I ordered a banger team fight.
Oh, okay.
I'm waiting for it to be delivered.
What about a T1
the
Baron
T1
instead?
Baron, like, so smart. They see that the dragon is being started off. The Ziggs ultimate is always there. They know this is started. Let's see how GENG handle this cross-map pressure.
Yep, it's Chovy that's going to make his way over there first. Spotted by a T1 ward, as we can see. And there's the Mega Inferno Bomb, just to guarantee that they know exactly what's going on. Teleport comes in, and yeah, there is no smite anywhere near this pit. Chovy, can you actually stop something from happening here? Is it going to be Honor? One down.
पिंक बस के साथ बहुत प्यारी अल्ट कैरियर की यहाँ पे
chop them up, and there goes Ona, but they'll trade that any day of the week. They have the Baron buff as carrier, able to get the handshake beautifully. His position amazing, as Lahens is in so much trouble. Zay's going to pick it up with a body slam.
जूस बहुत अच्छा डैमेज देते हुए और इधर हुमायूं बहुत प्यारा प्ले करते हुए
T1
अपना सारा हिसाब बराबर करते हुए
as GENG tried to start the dragon. They forced GENG into this very difficult situation that they just couldn't answer.
As we look here, Chovy, I imagine his job is to stall for the rest of his team to arrive, but he steps too far forward. He stays alive for a lot longer than we were expecting, but it doesn't matter. That's such a big source of damage gone. And then you see with Zeus threatening the backline, GENG doesn't actually have any damage. Like King is trying, but it's a Skarner and a Renekton that's getting kited away.
The resources are divided on two fronts with Zeus, putting that pressure on the mid lane. Meanwhile, Ashe is such an annoying champion for Renekton to deal with. We talked about the scaling elements, and you're starting to see them come to fruition. The first major lead of the game, while it's not represented in the gold, goes to T1.
The soul point did go to GENG, and that's something that they are going to try and hold on to. What can T1 get with this Baron? Bot side push is going to come through, but do remember, as long as Pace is in the lane, the wave clear is still going to be very annoying to deal with.
Yeah, especially when there's side lanes that are sort of pushing naturally towards GENG. You can tidy those up pretty comfortably. Right now, GENG doing a decent job being able to remove these minions. 5 grubs and Baron, though. It's going to be very, very difficult to stop T1 from taking these tier 2 turrets. It's going to be their option as now Chovy up here towards the top side of the map, fighting off against Faker, who's happy to go underneath this turret. It's so much damage. We'll say coming on through, and so Chovy's going to be okay, but this does not bode well. No, it wasn't.
This is why I was a little surprised by the Sylas pick, because you kind of don't beat Yone in lane, and then you don't really beat him in a side lane either. There's this sweet spot in the mid game where you can maybe get advantages just because your skirmishing power is stronger, but right now Chovy's struggling to match that of Faker in the side, and T1 putting pressure everywhere. Tier 2 towers secured in top lane. They've transitioned over to mid. Now they have another wave in bot. GENG's been dragged over towards the mid lane. That tower's going to fall. GENG in game 1, slowly losing more and more control over the game.
3k gold lead now for T1, even though the first minute or so the Baron, they weren't able to find anything. It's the setup afterwards. This team has perfected these Baron plays.
बहुत अच्छा डैमेज देते हुए और कॉम्बो के साथ T1 Skarner को देते हुए हुमायूं की बहुत प्यारा प्ले करते हुए एज का दोनों टैंक खत्म कर दिए.
And there are only inhibitor turrets left for GENG.
And T1 watch GENG walk into their deaths again and again and say thank you very much. The inhibitors stand, but the gold lead keeps growing.
And Faker just toying with them here on this bottom side of the map. Man, it really just feels like a big swing back. So much it was give and take in this game, but now T1 are just saying that they're going to have it all.
The pick potential of this roster was something we didn't get to talk a lot about, but you can see it clear as day. The Ashe arrow into the Gragas ultimate makes it so difficult to protect the target that gets locked down. Lahens doing what he can to try and catch Gumayusi out, but it's just not enough. And the game is quickly snowballing in favor of T1.
Lahens not feeling too happy about it. You can see the GOAT as well, not celebrating yet. This is game 1. 5,000 gold is the approaching gold lead for T1. They have so much map control. They should be able to deny the rest of the Dragons. They can get their ducks in a row as far as these lanes are concerned. And GENG back out onto the map now, trying to steal away this blue buff. They will be able to do so.
Notice on the map, though, that Faker's pushing out the top wave. Mid has kind of been sacrificed. no one is actually in a position to
Fight
catch
here,
it.
no more
Carrier is the
difference.
one there to
T1
try and hold the
taking
wave.
it off
Gooma's
there.
going to have to go the long way around. They've got push and bot, which means the Chovy's going to go and answer, but ultimately the river has been conceded. GENG have purchased over that area of the map, while Faker's remaining top has the TP available. Let's see how this one plays out.
Yeah, playing the side lanes very well is Faker, as we can see, going to immediately teleport into the mid lane as that wave crashes forward. Keen, he's got his teleport up as well, but he's going to be behind the play just a little bit. There's now Carrier looking for that opportunity. Hostile takeover, 2 seconds. Now it's back up and available. T1 are ready to fight.
GENG can't choose to give this up. T1 only have a single dragon, but it looks like they don't want to give him the opportunity, maybe feeling like in the late game they can't match. GENG gonna try and go for a Hail Mary here.
Yep, Chovy's got a cask at the ready. It is going to be Ona denying that soul, and now T1 starting off the fight. Can GENG actually find an angle as hostile takeover comes in? Carrier, he's tried to bail himself out, and it's going to work for now. The bail is good. They take down Carrier, but can they deal with the carries? That's the question. Chovy starting to pop up, and so is going to Yushi.
बहुत उम्दा विमल युशी ऐश के एरोज ने गेम को ट्रिपल किल की तरफ मोड़ दिया और T1 अपनी जीत की तरफ जाते हुए ऐश अनटचेबल
T1 in the final team fight of game 1 will snuff out GENG. A full-on ace at the cost of their jungle and support. The Nexus in their eyes, 30 minutes in. T1 remain the gatekeepers of the World Finals, and they'll say you'll have to try better than that if you want to make it to London.
Nexus turret number 1, Nexus turret number 2, and T1.
और T1 अपनी पहली गेम की जीत की तरफ पूरा फाइनली T1 पहला मैच जीत गई।